So yeah, just like create a folder and let me know when you're ready. Hopefully you've created a folder. I would click into the folder. Then once you're in the folder, which should be empty for you, you can create a REPL. Now, since we are learning Python, I would probably type in Python here, and you can just select Python. You can call this whatever you want. You can say like lesson 1. I'd assume you probably have a free account, so it's gonna be public, and you can just create the REPL. Let me know in chat or in Discord if you're stuck on something or you need some more time. Alright, so hopefully you've gotten to where I am here. As a quick introduction to REPL, let me zoom in for you. This area over here is basically the file structure. Or you can see we have a file, the main file that's generated here. We probably won't be making more than one file for the time being, so we can just, you can see main.py. Py is a file extension, like, you know, .png or something. Here, py means Python, because that's what we're doing. Over here, oh, don't want to click that. Come on. Alright. So, now that we're back here, here is your text editor. You can see here, you kind of have a tab open. This is your main.py tab. It's where you can edit what's in this file over here. And this is your console. This is where the computer will tell you to do stuff, and it will display what you want it to display. So, as a first order of business, if everyone is already here, we will do what is tradition in all programming classes, which is say hello to the world. So, in this particular language, the way that we represent like a string of text is with quotation marks. So, for example, the text like hello, when you go in here, is represented as a word hello. And in Python there are functions, and a few of them are like, there's some like built-in functions. For example, there's the print function, which is what we'll be using here. So if you do something like print hello, what you're telling the computer to do is use this function called print, or I guess use this method or function called print to print out this word over here. And if you notice, there's no quotations around here because it's an instruction. And so in Python, most of the words you're typing are like instructions to the computer, and when a word you're typing is not an instruction to the computer, but kind of like, I guess, like content, like just a bunch of text, you put it around quotations like this. If you come up here to this green button, this will run your code. If you hit run, you'll see the computer printed out the word hello. So now you can change anything you want within these quotations. You can type your name, you can type like a food, you can type like Python, hit enter, and boom. Now, as per tradition, hello world, exclamation mark. You can run that and it'll say hello world. So now you can take a few minutes, experiment with this. If you want to print a few more words in different lines, you can enter at the end of a line like a text editor normally does, and you can add a command in here as well and print something else. Second line. You go up here and you hit enter again. You'll get something printed in the second line. You can have as many lines as you want. Any line that has nothing in it is just treated as nothing to the computer. The computer just ignores it. So say you can do this over here as well. Print third line, which, as you can see, prints a third line, even though there's a bunch of white space here. So you can just take a few minutes, experiment with, I don't know, printing your name, printing your favorite food. Try it out. Or has everyone had a chance to play around with Python and printing statements? Anyone have any questions? Please type in chat or in Discord or in voice chat or some other way you can communicate with me. Don't leave me hanging. That is a great question, Freestyle Distance. Very interesting. So, yes and no. So, for example, if you see here in my hello world statement, I hit enter, right? And I make a new line. You'll see there's this red error on line while scanning string. And by the way, these are called strings because they're, strings of characters. And you'll see this is white, not like this text color. So how this particular programming language works, Python, is it treats each line as its own statement. So if you go to a new line, it treats it as a new statement. So in this sense, you cannot have two lines within one print statement. However, you can add special characters in programming. So if I don't hit enter and make a new line inside my text editor, you have the backslash, and any character, you can do different things. So for example, \n is code for new line, or \t is code for tab, and there's a few others. So if I do n like this over here, and I hit run, you'll see that it printed out in two different lines, even though you can see there's no visible line here. So you can insert things into your string so that the computer understands it should be a new line, but you can't just hit enter and make two lines. Great question. Anyone else? I need some human interaction here. If not, I guess we will move on to the next one. So let me clean this up a little bit. In Python, we don't only have text, because that wouldn't be doing much. We also have numbers, so we can just type in like 1 or 15 or 200, or I guess that's 1200 now. These are all numbers, and Python recognizes them as numbers. If you say put them in quotes like we did to hello world, Python would not recognize this as a number, even though there's only numbers in here. Python says, hey, you have a quote here, you have a quote there. This is actually a text, a string of text, right? So if you want a string of text, great, but usually with this, we just want it to be a number. Say like, so you can do stuff to it like 5 plus 1200. And so Python has obviously the 4 basic functions. You can do 4 divided by 2. You can do 3 times 2. And you have subtraction, obviously, 5 minus 2. And Python looks at all of these and it sees a mathematical expression. So while it is running through line by line by line, it'll look at this, it'll add them, and then to Python this will be treated as 1205. This will be the same as 2. This will be 6 and 3. Now if I hit run here, you'll notice nothing gets printed out. That's because it's not within these quotes, or it's not being printed out here, and it's just saying, hey, okay, I did the math, you didn't tell me to do anything with it, I'm not going to do anything with it. So what do you think you can do to make these results show up over here? Anyone in chat? Hello. What do you think? Print it, that is right. Welcome Kim Jong-un to the stream, I guess. Yes, you print it. Now, how would you print it? You can try on your own Repl, and you can try to print like math expression, any math expression here. See if you can get it to display over here on the console. Hey man, I'm trying my best, man. Were you able to successfully print it out? You can try to you can just paste what you got into the into chat if you got it to print out the result of an equation. Or you can just say you got it. Nice, that's very good. Alright, so I assume what you did is print, and you put this guy in parentheses, then print, whoa, and then what you see me doing here is I'm typing print, and then you can see me highlighting this, and what I do is I hit the open parentheses and it does it automatically. You do not have to learn this. This is just a cool and efficient way of doing things. And then when you hit run, ta-da! So one extra operation that is usually not in math is that division here is very weird. You can see 4 divided by 2 didn't give you 2, it gave you 2.0. Do you know why that might be? The reason why this is 2.0 instead of just 2 is because this, I told you this sign was actually division. This is not actually technically division. What this is decimal division. Now most of the time this is fine, right? 4 divided by 2, it's 2, right? It'll still operate out the same way. But sometimes you don't want that, right? Sometimes you want to just say, hey, 5 divided by 2, I don't want that to be 2.5. I just want you to just round that down to an integer because it'll break the rest of my program. So there is a different division in Python where you have 2 slashes, 5//2. And what this is integer division. So if I put this back to 4, you'll see I get 2, which is an integer. And if I change this to say 5, when you run this, you still get 2. Even though 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, what this double slash does is it's a integer division where you just chuck out the decimal that you get after dividing. So yeah, that's like, I guess, the third one, or the fifth one. So nice job learning math. One last thing I would say is, generally best practice for using spaces here is, a lot of the time adding a space here and there won't break the program. Like, I think I can just like add one here, you can run it, and it'll still do fine, right? But as best practice to make your code as readable as possible, the first most important thing is to make sure you have consistency. So something like this looks horrible. It's hard to read and it's hard to understand, purely just because you just have random spaces here, but sometimes you don't have the space. So usually the convention is to have no space here, kind of like, f of x. You have f of x, it's like a function like that, right? Where f is the function, these are your inputs. The convention here is the same like this. Now, you might have noticed I have a space here between numbers and the plus signs, and I don't have here. This is very bad. You should have it consistent, and generally the best practice is to add spaces over here so you can see the numbers more easily. And then you can obviously do a lot more different things. You don't need to just do two of them. You can say like 2 minus 3 times 2. You hit enter, you get -4, because surprisingly it actually does PEMDAS, which is very nice. So if you're for some reason doing basic arithmetic in school, you can tell Python to do your homework for you. So you can play around with that. I'll see what is next up that we can teach. Alright, so I think for our last thing today, we will learn input. Now, you've all used programs, you've all played games or something on a computer before, and if the computer's just outputting random stuff, that's kind of boring. You're just like watching a movie. You're not interacting with it. That's not really what a computer is, right? The point of a computer is you can interact with it. So the next thing we're going to learn is how to do user input. Now, to print something out onto the screen, the function we used is print, right? Now, if we want user input, what kind of function do you think we might need to use? You could try to guess in chat or something. Close, but it's actually a lot simpler than that, actually. In fact, I've actually already said the name of the function. So if I want to get user input, I would use the function called yes. We would use the function called input. So this function actually works pretty similarly. You type in input, and like the print function, you have another string here. You say like input something, and if you run your program, you see before there would be like just a little stopper here and nothing here, and you would have also noticed that it went green again because you could run it again because the program ended. But this time the program is still running, and now my cursor's over here. You can just actually type here something. Haha. Funny pun. If you can just type in something here, hit enter, and the program got that input. Now that's pretty cool and all, but what use is input if I don't get it, right? You see, I'm not doing anything with that input. So now we will use something that I probably should have taught you before user input: variables. So kind of like how in math, say x, right? If say x is equal to 6, that is kind of storing the value of 6 within x, right? So if you say 3 times x, that is equal to 3 times 6, right? So likewise here, we can say our variable is like input, right? We can say the input is equal to, say, something we want to input over here, right? Now, how do you think we should store, actually this is horrible practice, do not call it that, user input. How do you think we should store what we get from this input into this variable? You can try it, maybe type it in chat, or you could type it inside Repl and see if it works. Or actually, Repl probably won't tell you if it works, but yeah. Yep, that is exactly right. So you could say, I like how you added the prompt in there. I'll copy your prompt. What is your name? And if you want the variable name equal to that, name is equal to this. If you hit run, you can say like my name. That will be stored in name. So okay, we're one step closer to that. Now we have the user input stored in here. Now what do you want to do with that? Maybe you want to show it on screen, right? You want to print it or something, right? How do you think we should tell the computer to maybe put this back into the console and print it out and do something with it? Oh, you're catching on fast. Print name plus, and then you use something fancy here. Add an exclamation point. You are a great human being. So keep in mind, this is not a new line. This is just an extension of that line. you can see lines with the line numbers. With this, you can add strings because the plus sign is still a plus. So you can say Bob, and there we go. So now with user input, we can actually do something very interesting. We can actually make a calculator. So you've already gotten somewhere here. But say you wanted to make a calculator that added two numbers. Try to see if you can get a calculator or a program running so that it'll ask the user what the first number is, ask the user what the second number is, and print out the sum of those two numbers using what we learned from print, input, variables, and the math operations. More free music time. And feel free to type in chat when you think you're about there. Alright, how is it going? How's the calculator going? Alright, well that's okay. How far have you gotten so far? Have you been able to get user input yet? Like what numbers they want? And have you been able to get them into variables yet? Ah, I see. So, if you remember, with the plus signs, right? When you're adding strings, you earlier in chat you said print name plus that thing, you are a great human being, right? Over there, when you're using the plus sign to add strings, it put them next to each other, right? So now here, using the plus sign to add 4 and 5, what do you think is going wrong? Why is it putting them next to each other? Oh, and by the way, I'm realizing right now that this is, you need to use one thing that I haven't taught you yet. So don't worry about that part. Just try to go through step by step. Try to think of why it's going wrong. Exactly. So it looks like input is taking whatever the user types in, reading it as a string. And when you do the first input plus the second input, it's adding them as strings. So this is an interesting problem. Do you know how to solve this? Probably not. Do I remember exactly how to solve this? Probably not. What do we do now? We go to Google. You say, how to turn a string into a number, Python. Try it out. Try to read maybe 1 or 2 of these. See if you can try to figure out a way to get an answer, because now, only now are you starting to truly understand and learn what being a programmer is like.
D&D is a podcast, a dinner party, and a semi-improvised story inspired by good food and Dungeons & Dragons. A new meal and a new adventure is served weekly on Wednesdays. Tap the button to start listening to D&D for free, only on Spotify.
Uber Eats is loaded up with your favorites. So what's your number one? Is it a double bacon cheeseburger with sweet potato fries? Or is it mahi mahi tacos with green salsa and hibiscus lemonade? Or is it a New York steak topped with rich chimichurri sauce? All the foods you crave from the restaurants you love, all in one place. Tonight I'll be eating with Uber Eats. Order now. See Uber Eats app for availability.
Have you found a solution yet? Ah, That looks good to me. Does it work? Are you getting 4 plus 5 equals 45 still? Or are you getting 4 plus 5 equals 9? Nice. So now not only have you learned some basic syntax, you've also learned how to Google for answers. You'll be having to do that a lot more in the future. So one thing I will warn you about is you'll see that you used int here, right? And that is going to be the first answer that pops up. Int. Just keep in mind that this is converting a string to an integer, and remembering that an integer is like, there's no decimals in an integer, so if someone put like 1.1 plus 1.1, you would just get 2 instead of 2.2, because it's turning the 1.1 into an integer. So just remember when you're Googling to make sure you read what they're telling you to do, because you won't exactly get the exact answer you want every single time, but for now you're doing more than good enough. If I had to guess, I think Python num function. No, that's not the num thing. Alright, yeah. Int is good enough for most use cases, so that's good. So let's take a look at our syllabus. Hopefully I don't leak anything. We have gotten Python running on Repl. We've learned how to use print with Hello World. We've learned basic math with user input. And I've actually skipped over here to the calculator. Next class, we will be looking at some rock, paper, scissors, and maybe even some hangman. Thank you for watching. Hit the follow, subscribe, smash that like button. Just kidding. See you around.